Welcome to the Grand Compendium. Today I have two more stories to share of RPG tables gone wrong. The first story is of an edgelord who pulls the classic, "It's what my character would do," and the second is of a player's more than disappointing experience at a D&D cafe. Without further ado, let us begin. Our first story is titled, "Edgelord with Main Character Syndrome dishes it's what my character would do, but can't take it." We only got 7 sessions into a game of 8 people, including the GM. I knew 4 of the players and the GM already. The other 3 were the GM's cousin, the cousin's girlfriend, and his friend. The cousin was your stereotypical massive main character syndrome edgelord. He was playing a chaotic good warlock, 100% chaotic evil, in a neutral to good aligned group. Would constantly try to make everything about him, fight every NPC we met, argued with the GM about the rules, and sulked like a child if he failed a roll. He once failed a stealth roll with a nat 1 and screamed it was bullshit, knocked over his chair, and left the table for 10 minutes. It was a peaceful 10 minutes. I'm sure you know the type. The 4 players I knew already, and we were all of the same opinion on Warlock, talked about it with the GM, who said he would speak with him. This was the end of session 4. Before session 5 began, me and another player asked GM how the talk went. He shrugged and simply replied, he said it's what his character would do." I said, "What about the above table arguing and sulking that he's doing out of character?" He just shrugged again and we went to play. At the end of the session, one of the players said he would be stopping as he couldn't play at the table with Warlock. He said this in front of everyone. Warlock didn't give a crap, in fact looked smug. But his girlfriend, who was new to D&D, and had actually been an awesome player so far, started yelling about how she would fight this leaving player and how dare he insult her man. It was a lot. By session 6, we had started to delve into my character's story. As the most experienced player out of everyone, the GM had thought starting with my story would be a good way to show others, who had all met with the GM to discuss backstories, etc., in private session zeros, how it would go. Warlock would not stop complaining about how it was taking all the attention. I most definitely wasn't, and 2 players backed me up on that, and how my character was lame. A lawful neutral human male, in his 40s fighter, battlemaster, and story would be boring. During session 6, he friendly fired on every single player with some eldritch blasts, even reducing his friend to 0 as we had just been in combat, and he knew he was low. At this point, all players except his girlfriend had just had enough. I spoke up about how he wasn't being a good team player, and was met with, "Whatever, it's what my character would do." Session 7 rolled around. I was both excited as the story had been great, but dreading it because of Warlock. Myself and the others were really fighting to keep enjoying it. Well, there was a fantastic but sad plot twist for my character when he arrived back home to his farmstead to find his wife dead. No more than a day gone. An emotional moment ensued. Then Warlock struck. He decided it would be hilarious to decapitate my character's wife and use her head as a puppet. So I told GM I'd attack him, and would be unleashing my full Battlemaster level 5 build into this Warlock, including all 4 superiority dice, action surge, and bonus action polearm master. GM told me to roll to hit my first attack. Instantly, Warlock started yelling, "You can't do that!" I'm trying to sound edgy but also whiny, it's really hard. Another player said, "Well, why the hell not? You attacked us all last session." He started shaking with anger. "It's not fair, you're attacking me personally." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You just desecrated my wife's corpse and used her as a puppet. Of course I'm gonna attack you. It's what my character would do." He stormed out of the room, his girlfriend calling us all childish and going after him. GM just sighed and said we'd pick up again next week. His friend actually apologized on his behalf when I was leaving, which I thought was nice of him, but all in all meaningless. 2 days later, I get a message from GM saying Warlock refused to play at the table if I was still there, so he thought it was best if I left the game. I was baffled. I asked if he genuinely thought me leaving and not Warlock was the best idea. One player had already left because of him, and it was no secret me and the other 3, possibly even Warlock's friend, had been struggling to stay and only had because our GM was our friend and a great storyteller. If I went, I knew others would follow. He said, well, it shucks, but he's family. So I said, fine, I won't play where I'm not wanted. Screenshot the convo and sent it to the group chat, which included all players. Instantly the others said they weren't interested in playing anymore. The last message I saw was Warlock saying, now we can actually play an interesting game. I have no idea if they continued or not. I haven't seen GM since. Not because of any animosity, but just life's been very busy. But me and the 4 players I originally knew started another game. One picked up GMing and asked if I would like to continue my character's story, as he had really been into it and everyone else agreed. So that's my story. Maybe not much of a horror one exactly, but if I went into detail on every little moment, it definitely would look like one. End of story. This GM pisses me off so much. Like, Warlock is a problem player for sure, but the GM is just enabling it because we're family. It doesn't matter if you're family or not. This guy's a prick. Stop letting him push you around. This whole story would have been averted if the GM grew a spine and told this guy to act like an adult. If the player refused, just kick him. Sure, that might be quickly escalating the situation, but the majority of the table made it very clear that they had a problem with the Warlock. Now, the Warlock is obviously just acting like a child. He thinks that he should have special privilege to be an ass to everyone just because he's the GM's cousin. But anyways, it's at least good to know that the rest of the players could continue the game without the Warlock and the GM. So let's just move on to our second, much longer story. Our second story is titled, Fool Me Once, Shame on You. Fool Me Twice, Shame on Me. Fool Me 3 times, the D&D Café saga. So, some context, I've been into D&D for years, listened to podcasts, watched tutorials, read articles, and watched the movie which I liked, etc. But it wasn't a popular hobby in my home country, so I never really had a chance to play it as finding a party was next to impossible. But last year I've moved to London for studies and work, and since then I've been having a blast getting to interact with the far bigger and more active D&D community here. Overall, it's been a mostly fun experience to finally try the game I've wanted to play for so long, on top of other games like Call of Cthulhu and Daggerheart. Keyword mostly. See, alongside my regular party, there are also these D&D cafes around London where you can play one-shots for a price. It's a bit steep, about £15 per session, but I've been to 2 of them a fair number of times. One of them is in Holborn and not too far from a university campus. I heard some bad stuff about, especially controversy surrounding the owners, but personally I've had an enjoyable experience there. The DMs are good, atmosphere is friendly, and I've never dealt with any problem players. A few annoying ones maybe, but never outright toxic. The same cannot be said for the second one. Anyways, first session, it's barely 2 weeks since I've moved to London, and after a quick Google search, I learned that there's this venue not too far from where I live in Elephant and Castle, which has beginner-friendly introductory sessions. I wasn't confident enough to join a regular party yet, as I had next to no experience actually playing. So I thought that getting a proper introductory session with a one-shot to properly learn the ropes of D&D would be a good idea. So I booked for that evening and make my way there. The character creation is enjoyable enough, They give me and other newbies a quick rundown of the lore for their homebrew world, give us the rules and guidelines, be respectful of players and DM, don't use slurs or other offensive language, the typical stuff. And finally we get a rundown on making a D&D Beyond character. Since I'm still new to this, I decided to make a simple one. A champion fighter who is a boisterous and deeply insecure knight, and may or may not be inspired by another axe-wielding champion fighter, dwarf man from not another D&D podcast. After all that, we begin the session. Basically, we've been sent by the Adventurers Guild to investigate a series of bizarre and unexplained disappearances in some village. We're guided there by a young girl from said village who lost her mother, and for the first 20 minutes it goes well as me and the other adventurers banter and talk and joke around, while the DM stays completely silent. Then we arrive in the village, and that's when the fuckery begins. Not the good kind, like we'd find monsters or whatever, but fuckery as in it seems like our DM is determined to railroad us away from anything remotely interesting. We try to speak to anyone in the village for information or clues, and all we get are variations of, "They avoid talking to you," or "They know nothing." Warlock tries to roll an Arcana check to sense if there's any magic influence. Rolls an 18. The response? Just 3 words. "You feel nothing." Okay, Wizard tries Detect Magic. Still nothing, according to the DM. Young teenage bard PC tries to speak to other kids and their parents, and successfully charms them? They seem to like you, but either know nothing or won't tell you. Always the same laconic answers from the DM. And when the wizard PC asks above table what we should do, then he goes, "You just gotta keep looking deeper into this." Mind you, that's exactly what we've been trying to do for the entire hour. At this point, we're more than nearly halfway through the session. Normal sessions are 2.5 hours, so I'm getting a little frustrated because nothing has happened as we try to look for seemingly non-existent clues. Not helped by a DM that seems determined to give us no trails at all. So, after the break, we decide to just go speak to the town elder directly. We heard from the girl who guided us that the elder may be connected to whatever is causing the vanishings. Thus, our party corners the man in his home and interrogate him. But that crotchety elder must have had nerves of steel gifted by the gods, because nothing we did could make him talk. I rolled a fucking nat 20 on an intimidation roll, and the man, according to the DM, makes absolutely no change in his demeanor and just tells us to leave the town alone because we don't know what we're doing. Yeah, I agree. We don't know anything, because again, we haven't been told or informed of anything. By that point, the DM probably noticed that me and the other PCs had been getting frustrated, and that the clock was ticking to finish the session. So the remaining 30 minutes takes everything from 0 to 100 in an instant. Suddenly the DM becomes more emotive than he's been all evening, as he describes the sky going red, and we see a massive fire in the distance in the hill overseeing the village. The elder panics and runs to his hut, while we run to the surface of the fire. Finally, we see something interesting. A massive wicker man burning with corpses inside, a circle of robed cultists that we recognize as some villagers, and standing at the center is the girl who reveals herself to be responsible for the town's vanishings. In a totally not rushed exposition dump, she, or the DM, explains that she is in fact a demon who the village made a deal with to protect the villagers from vampires. Vampires that were never mentioned before, by the way. In exchange for sacrifices. She had lured us into the village so that she could make a deal with us to expand her grasp across the land and beyond the village, offering protection from the vampires. Naturally, we all say no. And you'd expect a fight, right? A big climactic battle to save the village. Nope. There's less than 10 minutes left for the session, so we gotta rush through everything. Demon girls leave, vampires enter village, kill everyone. No indication or sign, we just come back to the village and everyone's dead. and the other tells us in his dying breath, "We should have left them alone," before croaking. Session over. If that last section seemed over really quickly, well, that's because that's exactly how quick it felt when the DM that spent 3/4 of the session fucking around and railroading us to nowhere realized he had to end it. Needless to say, I am left pretty annoyed. Felt like I lost 2.5 hours I'm never getting back. By then, plenty of people would have washed their hands of this place and never come back, but I heard that DM was still new. In fact, this was his second ever game he DM'd. So you know what? I was willing to give this place a second chance. Because surely the other more experienced DMs in this place were better, right? The second one-shot I played in was somehow worse. Here I was, booking for another £15 to enjoy an evening at this cafe. We were in a nice room styled after a tavern, giving it a pleasant atmosphere. Hell, one of the randoms I was with that night also played with me in the last game, so it was nice to have a familiar face. Plus, the setup was much more interesting this time. We were hired by a secret society of sacred protectors, that was kind of a tongue twister, to find proof that a cult was hiding out in some music store downtown. We were to be discreet, to act unassuming while we found the dark underbelly hiding beneath the shiny glamour of expensive instruments. Sounded like something that would be RP heavy, which I was happy for, RP between PCs being the one good thing from the first game. Probably also for the better, since the party was extremely imbalanced. One half of the team, including me, were level 1 or 2, and the other half were level 6. The thing about this cafe was that there were no level-specific one-shots, so you could have parties with PCs of wildly different power levels. But surely they'd care about balance to make sure everyone had fun, right? Anyways, much like before, the beginning went well enough. We entered the store, me and the other level 1s would talk and fool the clerk, while the level 6s tried to sneak in the back. It was cool to RP, and we played well against one another, until one bad roll threw everything down the shitter. It happened almost instantly. I tried to roll deception on the clerk and failed. She rolls insight and gets a 17. In an instant, she pulls out a dagger and slits my throat, before immediately attacking and knocking out the other level 1s in a single turn. No warning, not even a chance to dodge or react, just instant knockout as she dealt over 40 damage in a single attack. The whole plan falls apart as the level 6ers then have to come out of hiding to stop her from killing us. The following combat encounter has me and the others on the floor the whole time, in complete silence while the DM seemed to have the time of his life, RPing and describing each attack. It's then that I realized that there was no balance whatsoever. This clerk was level 7 according to the DM, and the level 6ers don't even get to kill her because she throws a smoke bomb and just vanishes. The whole hook of the session, that it would be RP heavy, that it was all about infiltration with some combat, yeah, that was gone. No more sneaking or anything. Just pure action the rest of the session. We enter the basement after we're all healed, then spend an hour running around random traps that made no sense, and the DM seemed to be pulling out of his ass like even he hadn't fully prepared for this. And the last half hour was us battling the cultists in the basement, consisting of a wizard and her knight protector on top of the clerk. Although battling was a generous term for me and the level 1ers, because we were so weak we effectively couldn't do jack shit most of the fight. The enemies knocking us out in one hit, or we try to hit them to no avail, making one of the most frustratingly boring fights I've ever played. It didn't help that the DM was also being a smug-ass douche about it. He kept having the villains insult us and mock us as we tried to fight, and always specifically the level 1ers. Didn't help that the witch had vicious mockery, so we'd be often incapacitated or knocked out by said insults, which only made him even more smug. It came to a point where it felt less like RPing and more like he was straight up bullying us. So much for the rule about no offensive language. Much like the first time, almost like poetry, the session ended anticlimactically. The clerk flees again, not before setting the whole place on fire, effectively destroying all evidence of the cult. The store is destroyed, and we have to flee authorities. Once again, making all our efforts and pain in this session pointless. After that game, yeah, I told myself I was pretty much done with the place. Twice I've been there, and twice I've been left feeling sour and disappointed. First session was boring, second was frustrating. I left this place and didn't come back. For 4 months. Now in hindsight, I really should have learned my lesson. After that second game, I should have just cut my losses and left that place behind. By then I was much more familiar with the ttrpg scene in London. I was going to that other D&D cafe I enjoyed much more. I was joining clubs and public events, even joined a regular party of players that I grew close with and vibed with really well. By all accounts, I didn't need to go back there. But you know what? I kept hearing from other people that the place wasn't so bad, that they had a good time there, that they had fun. I keep hearing nothing but good things from other D&D players around me. So eventually, after months of avoiding that place, I go, you know what? Third time's the charm. Spoilers, it wasn't. It really wasn't. Session 3 managed to strike a near perfect balance between my experience with the first and second game, being both boring and frustrating. Let me set the scene. The DM for this session was apparently one of the main writers for this venue, responsible for writing and creating the homebrew world we played those games in. They also had a new major story event going on about the undead and the ruins of an ancient city. Sounds riveting, perhaps a setup for dungeons and exploration. The session seemed to be set up this way. This time, my new character, a halfling barbarian that was a half-joke character after I got bored of my champion fighter, joined a group of fellow adventurers in trying to rescue a group of archaeologists that had become trapped in a cavern in that ruined city. We were to traverse through the ruins, holding among us a huge bomb that we were supposed to use to blow up the caverns to get the trapped souls out. Sounded cool, and yet again, it started promising. In this new party, including a necromancer who used her dead ex-husbands as thralls, a goblin artificer who loved explosions, literally named Boom, all caps, and a comically serious turtle veteran barbarian that my newbie barbarian was really beginning to vibe with. Among others, we entered the ruins, saw a heavy mist of death magics approaching us, and we thought we'd traverse through and fight undead along the way. Instead, the DM has this huge grin as he pulls out a custom figure, the size of my forearm, of some massive undead monstrosity that looked like a mech made of bone. Think a mix of Lord Naito from Dark Souls and the cyborg demons from Doom. It was, to their credit, a really badass, well-made figure. Shame it didn't make the fight any better. This massive beast turns out to be a boss, and we get no chance to avoid or evade it as we are all thrown into initiative. The fight goes on the entire session. No RP, no exploration. We don't even get close to the archaeologists we were supposed to be here to rescue. We spend the next 2 hours hitting that thing with all we had, even using the bomb we had on us to kill it. And we barely even scratch it. Literally, it doesn't even get bloodied until the session is nearly over. All the while, my character and a fellow level 1er is utterly useless the entire time. Again, we are level 1. It was my first session with that character. And this is apparently some all-powerful super boss with an AC of 19, so we couldn't do shit to it. I spent my whole session just running away from it, which as a halfling with only 30 feet of movement is not easy. but it doesn't stop me from getting one-shotted twice. Finally, yet again, like poetry, the DM realized we wasted time till the session was almost over, and decided to rush things. So a dinosaur comes out of nowhere and battles the undead monster, giving us a window of escape. With all of us bloodied and the bomb gone, we had to flee the ruins, basically leaving the archaeologists to die. Once again, our efforts are for naught. The real kicker, after the session ends, that writer admits that this guy was an event boss for the big story arc they had prepared for this ruined city, and we were the first party to have faced it. He said he wanted to have a big fight to introduce it in-universe, and to have it spread around parties to hear the threat it posed. Essentially, he spent this entire session making us the sacrificial lambs to some plot I didn't know or care about. So in my eyes, it just felt like I, once again, spent 2.5 hours on fucking nothing. The DM tells us we could have sneaked past it, but considering the map had no cover, and the thing effectively just spawned in front of us, it felt like he either hadn't properly prepared for this session, or he was lying through his teeth. Either way, I leave this place again feeling cheated, and was almost ready to ask for a refund. But I guess I was too tired at that point, so I was just like, it was whatever, and left the cafe. And this time it will be for good. Now, I know that this post is really long and ranty. I guess I just needed to vent about this shit for a while, because these games at that place left a bitter taste in my mouth. Maybe if I hadn't spent £15 on these sessions, it wouldn't have left me so pissed. But since I did, I can't shake the feeling that I've been cheated. Look, these 3 sessions are only a small part of my experience with the community in London. Most of the one-shots I've had in other places were fun, and my regular party are currently playing through Storm King's Thunder. And I've been loving it so far. I still play D&D, I still enjoy it, and interacting with the community. It's just now I'm extra careful when a DM says that they're new to this or likes to mess with players. Because that apparently means I don't plan ahead, or I'm just a fucking sadist. End of post. This story, I think, is the best example of what most people's experiences with bad tables are like. It's not some crazy neckbeard or a complete edgelord trying to take over. It's just a session that ends with you feeling disappointed and frustrated. As OP said, they've had more positive experiences than bad ones, but the bad ones will always leave a much bitterer and longer lasting taste in your mouth. Also, the story kind of reinforces my personal opinion on paid D&D games. It feels so much worse knowing you spend money on something only for it to end up being a disappointment. Also, if these DMs are employed at this cafe, you'd think they'd put a bit more effort into running these games, and making sure that the people they're running for are enjoying the session. Also, having players be at different levels is such an easy way to have people lose interest in your game. Because if a character just gets tossed aside due to enemies being too powerful for them to fight, it'll just make that player lose any remaining will to engage with your game that they may have had left. Anyways, that's all I'm gonna say about this. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you want to watch a D&D campaign that doesn't have any horror in it, please consider checking out Heroes of Valeria. And with all of that said, I hope you have yourselves a good day.